Good morning. My name is Whitney Brooks, and I'd like to start by saying thank you to Pastor Seth, Kendra, Ellyn for all that you do. I'm here to talk for 5 minutes, and it's rather nerve-wracking and difficult to prepare for this. I can't imagine what a sermon would look like. But I also appreciate the opportunity to speak to people and not have to talk about commercial insurance. So that's pretty fabulous. Today, we'll work on it. Today I'll be addressing the topic of joy, which is a rather easy subject to opine on. I could tell you about the taste of my wife's home-cooked meals. I could tell you about laughing with my daughter as we roughhouse on the floor. I could tell you about how I like to act like a child when I coach my son's kindergarten soccer team. Thursday morning tennis, early morning rounds of golf. But as someone who gets a lot of wisdom from this very pulpit, I decided not to just inventory the reasons I have to be joyful, but instead to try and pass on some wisdom on my own. So wish me luck. As we sit between Christmas and New Year's, we're celebrating new beginnings, the birth of Christ, the advent of a new decade. And with beginnings comes new hopes, and New Year's resolutions, and the pursuit of happiness. Which brings me to my central thesis today, that all too often we allow happiness to be the enemy of our joy. In 1776, Thomas Jefferson wrote those famous words we all learned in history class, that we're all born with certain unalienable rights, such as life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And on this subject, particularly, I think he got it right. Happiness is something to be pursued. It's something that we're constantly chasing. In fact, I think of happiness as being a treadmill. We're constantly running, constantly pursuing, but never actually crossing that proverbial finish line. Think of some examples in your own life. Think of the last time you ate that perfect bite of chocolate. How long did you enjoy it before all you could think about was the next bite? Think about that new car you bought. How long were you actually pleased with that car until you wanted that new funky, fancy SUV that Tesla made? And as a parent, I've learned that this sort of pursuit of happiness is human nature. My son George is obsessed with dinosaurs, and he loves these little figurines. He's got over 20 of them now. He got a dozen of them for Christmas. The day after Christmas, he asked to look at the website where we can see them so we could figure out which other dinosaurs to get. As human beings, we're unable to sit still and be happy for very long. So I'd like to now talk a little bit about joy versus happiness, and I usually try to avoid sports analogies. But given how often Pastor Seth talks about his passion for athletics, I thought this would be the appropriate time. So I'd like to unpack joy and happiness in a round of golf. For me, happiness represents the final score. I am happy if I can break 80. But joy is enjoying each shot, or each step, or each word shared with a friend. In the game of life, how often have you not enjoyed each shot because you were too worried about what your final score will be? Now, you may be thinking, Whit, it's rather easy to find joy in a round of golf. After all, a bad day at the golf course always beats a good day at the office, right? How might I find joy in the mundane, such as sitting in traffic, being under stress at work or at home, or heaven forbid, supporting a loved one through illness or injury, or having an illness or injury yourself? And for me, when I find joy is hard to find, I fall back on gratitude. In the context of a brutish and harsh universe, I think gratitude is pretty easy to find. I'll give you a few tips. The first one I think about is how lucky I am to be here. Did you know that 3 billion people with a B live on less than $2.50 per day? I'm sure there are some financial hardships in our congregation, but I'd be hard-pressed to believe that they're that difficult. As a sign reads on my bathroom window, be grateful. Billions of people would trade places with you in a heartbeat. On a happier note, I like to find gratitude in a little thought experiment. I often wonder myself, what would the world be like if it was only filled with me? As my wife can attest, we would live in dilapidated housing. The world might be a little friendlier, and it would always be easy to find a game of tennis. But modern transportation, cell phones, skyscrapers, Space travel? Forget about it. I'm very grateful to all of the people who have come before us, and I'm constantly amazed, even if sitting in traffic, how we went from hunter-gatherers in nature to the remarkable world that we see now. It's truly an astonishing transformation. So as we approach the new year, I urge all of you to make that New Year's resolutions list, and I urge all of you to pursue happiness. Aim for that promotion. Reach for your next level of expertise in your hobby. Read all of those books you have stacked up. Even volunteer here at this church. Pursue your calling and better yourself every day. But don't forget to find joy in the journey. Don't forget joy in those pursuits. And if you ever find that joy is hard to come by, fall back on gratitude. And be sure to put this on the top of that resolutions list. So with that, I thank you for the honor of speaking and for listening, and I wish you all a happy, grateful, and joyful New Year.